Queen Zara saw a human miner take on the battle by himself and couldn't believe it. Jagged mountains of gray rock pierced the landscape, and the ground was a rough patchwork of craters and ridges, shaped by centuries of meteor impacts. Yet beneath this harsh surface, the planet hid something that made it valuable to the galaxy: the crystals of argonix, a rare mineral that powered starships and weapons alike. Among the miners who worked here, Jack Rylan was an ordinary man with an extraordinary mind. To the Zarathi overseers, he was just another human, small and fragile compared to their towering forms. But Jack had survived Thaler V's harsh conditions and learned its secrets. He knew where the crystal veins ran, how to extract them without triggering rock slides, and how to fix machines that others abandoned as impossible to repair. Jack's hands were rough from years of labor, and his clothes were stained with dust and grime. His helmet's visor reflected the orange light of the setting sun as he carefully drilled into a crystal vein. Sparks flew as the drill bit deeper into the rock, and a small cloud of dust rose around him. He wiped his brow and squinted at the gleaming crystals. They were beautiful in their own way, glowing faintly with an inner light, almost like they were alive. Even as he worked, Jack's mind wandered. He thought about the stories he had heard from the older miners, tales of humans who had come to alien worlds and survived impossible conditions. Humans were considered weak by most alien civilizations, including the Zarathi, but Jack knew that humans had a kind of stubborn courage that no machine or weapon could match. That courage had kept his ancestors alive on Earth, and it kept him alive here too. Far above the colony, in the flagship of the Zarathi Empire, Queen Zara sat in her command chamber. Her form was elegant and commanding, her purple skin shimmering slightly under the soft lights. Her eyes were large and black, reflecting the stars beyond the transparent hull. She was young for a Zarathi queen, but already wise and feared across multiple star systems. Every movement she made was deliberate, every word measured. Zara had been watching Thaler V closely. Her empire had claimed the planet for its mineral wealth, but there were signs of unrest among the human miners. Humans were clever, and some of them had been acting in ways that suggested intelligence beyond simple laborers. Reports had mentioned a few humans solving complex machinery problems without Zarathi guidance, and one name had begun to appear repeatedly: Jack Rylan. She leaned back in her chair, her long fingers tapping lightly on the control panel in front of her. "Humans," she murmured almost to herself. "So small, so fragile, yet they persist in ways I did not expect." Meanwhile, on the surface, Jack had finished securing a section of the crystal mine. He paused to rest, sitting on a jagged rock and wiping the sweat from his forehead. The wind whipped around him, carrying dust into his eyes, but he hardly noticed. The life of a miner was hard, and danger was a constant companion. Rock slides, equipment failures, and the occasional wild predator were just part of the daily routine. But Jack had always believed that danger was something to be faced, not feared. He checked his equipment one last time before heading back to the main colony camp. The camp was a cluster of metallic structures, some built by humans, some by Zarathi engineers. Lights flickered in the dimming sky as miners returned from the day's work, their faces tired but satisfied. Jack greeted a few colleagues, exchanging brief words and nods. There was camaraderie here, a silent understanding that everyone relied on each other to survive. As Jack approached the main hall, a Zarathi officer appeared, gliding smoothly on mechanical limbs. His name was Tharok, a loyal servant of Queen Zara, and his sharp eyes were always watching. "Rylan," he said, his voice low and smooth, "report to the observation deck." "The Queen wishes to see you." Jack frowned. He had no idea what a queen of an alien empire would want with a human miner. Still, he knew better than to refuse. He followed Tharok, his steps careful as they climbed the metal walkways that led to the observation deck. The air inside the flagship was cool and artificial, filled with a quiet hum of machinery. Jack had been inside such ships before, but every time it felt overwhelming. The technology was beyond anything humans had created, and yet he noticed something curious. The ships ran smoothly, almost like they were designed for simplicity as much as power. Queen Zara stood near a large window, gazing at the planet below. Her posture was straight, regal, and intimidating. When she turned her head to acknowledge Jack, he felt a strange mix of awe and unease. "You are Jack Rylan," she said, her voice soft but commanding. "The one they call resourceful." Jack nodded cautiously. "Yes, Your Majesty." I just do my work, ma'am." Zara tilted her head slightly, studying him. "Your work is not ordinary. You have found ways to solve problems that confound my engineers. You survive conditions that would kill many of your kind. Tell me, what drives you?" Jack hesitated. He was used to danger and hard work, but being questioned by a queen of a powerful alien empire was different. He thought about it, then spoke honestly. "I guess I don't like giving up. If there's a way to fix something or survive something, I try to find it. I can't help it." Zara's eyes seemed to glimmer with curiosity. Humans were supposed to be simple, limited creatures, easy to control. Yet this one miner, this ordinary human, was showing signs of ingenuity, courage, and determination. She had underestimated him, and that thought both intrigued and disturbed her. Back on the surface, the sun sank below the jagged mountains, and the shadows grew long. Jack returned to the miners' quarters, where the humans were gathering for their evening meal. Conversations buzzed about the day's work, about the strange shifts in the rock, about the constant fear of alien predators. But for now, there was a temporary calm. Jack sat with a small group, sharing food and water, and listened to the older miners talk about the colony's history. They told stories of how humans had first arrived on Thaler V, how they had struggled to survive against alien threats, how they had adapted to machines and technology far beyond their own. Jack realized that his own work was part of a long tradition of human survival, resourcefulness passed down through generations. As night fell, Jack stepped outside to look at the stars. From Thaler V, the night sky was breathtaking. Thousands of stars dotted the black canvas, distant planets and galaxies shining like tiny beacons. He felt small, yet connected to something much larger. The universe was vast and dangerous, but humans had found a way to survive in it. Somehow he believed they could continue to do so. Deep in orbit, Queen Zara continued to observe. Her mind was a whirl of calculations and questions. Humans had been considered insignificant for centuries, weak, easily controlled. But this one human miner, alone on a dangerous world, had shown signs of intelligence and courage that made her reconsider everything. She could not explain it fully, but she felt a stirring of something unusual, a mixture of respect, curiosity, and something that bordered on awe. The calm of the evening was deceptive. Across the galaxy, a fleet of enemy ships was moving, silent and deadly. They were drawn to Thaler V, seeking to claim the planet and its resources for themselves. Few suspected that a single human miner might stand between them and victory. Jack, unaware of the approaching danger, drifted into sleep, dreaming of crystal veins and starlit skies, of machines that obeyed his hands, and of the quiet power that humans carried within themselves. Tomorrow, the peace of Thaler V would shatter. Jack's ingenuity, courage, and determination would be tested in ways he could never have imagined. And Queen Zara, watching from above, would witness something extraordinary, a human standing against impossible odds. But for now, the world was still, the stars shining above, and the quiet determination of one miner remained hidden, waiting to be revealed. Jack Rylan, ordinary yet extraordinary, prepared unknowingly for the greatest challenge of his life. And somewhere in the depths of the universe, forces beyond imagination were gathering, unaware that one human's stubborn courage would change everything. The next morning on Thaler V began quietly, as if the planet itself was holding its breath. The orange sky had softened into a dull yellow, streaked with clouds that hinted at the coming day. Jack Rylan woke early, his body stiff from hours of hard labor the day before. The miners were already moving, checking equipment, repairing machinery, and preparing for another day of extraction. Jack joined them, his mind calm but alert. He had learned long ago that survival on Thaler V required constant attention. Every rock face could collapse, every machine could fail, and every misstep could lead to disaster. Yet, he also knew that careful planning, quick thinking, and a willingness to act when others hesitated made the difference between life and death. As he worked, a distant vibration ran through the ground. At first, Jack thought it was a minor tremor, common on a planet shaped by constant meteor impacts. But the vibration grew stronger, accompanied by a low, almost mechanical hum in the air. Miners paused, exchanging worried glances. Machines that had been humming normally began to stutter, their lights flickering erratically. Jack straightened, his eyes scanning the horizon. Far above the mountains, dark shapes were emerging from the thin atmosphere. Ships. Not Zarathi ships, but something unfamiliar, sleek and angular, moving with precision and purpose. He ran toward the observation tower at the center of the colony, shouting as he went. "Everyone, get inside, now!" Panic spread quickly. Humans scrambled, trying to secure equipment and find safety in the reinforced shelters. The alien ships were descending fast, their engines sending gusts of wind and dust across the mining fields. Jack could see that these intruders were not here for trade or observation. They were here to take the crystals by force. Queen Zara, orbiting high above the planet, watched with keen interest. Her eyes widened slightly as she observed the fleet approaching. She had anticipated challenges from rebellious colonies or rival factions, but she had not expected a sudden, organized attack on Thaler V. Her mind raced, calculating the odds, the fleet's speed, and the potential for human resistance. Back on the ground, Jack moved with determination. He wasn't a soldier, but he understood machines and strategy. He ran to the central storage area, grabbing tools, mining explosives, and spare power cells. "If they think we'll just hide, they're wrong," he muttered to himself. The other miners looked at him uncertainly. Most were afraid, untrained in combat, and unsure how to face advanced alien technology. Jack organized a small group of willing miners, explaining quickly what they could do. "We can't stop them all," he said, "but we can slow them down. We know this land and we know the machines. If we use what we have smartly, we can survive." They moved quickly, setting up barricades made from mining carts, drilling equipment, and rock debris. Jack taught them to use mining lasers as makeshift weapons, adjusting the power settings to create bursts of intense light capable of cutting through thin armor. Some miners hesitated, but Jack's calm confidence gave them courage. The alien ships touched down in the mining fields with precision. Small dropships emerged, their sleek bodies glinting in the dusty sunlight. Soldiers spilled out, tall and imposing, their armor unlike anything the humans had faced before. They moved methodically, scanning for threats and advancing toward the crystal veins. Jack's heart pounded, but he refused to let fear control him. He darted from barricade to barricade, giving instructions and helping wherever needed. When a dropship landed dangerously close, he directed a miner to trigger a small explosion near its engines, causing it to lift off unexpectedly and sending its occupants scrambling. Queen Zara observed all of this with a mix of astonishment and disbelief. She had expected humans to scatter and hide under such circumstances, but here was one human, one miner, coordinating, improvising, and leading a small group against a technologically superior force. His strategies were clever, using the environment, the tools at hand, and his understanding of the alien ship's weaknesses. The battle was chaotic. Dust, sparks, and explosions filled the air. The miners, under Jack's guidance, became a surprisingly effective resistance. They used tunnels and rock formations to their advantage, setting traps, redirecting alien patrols, and sabotaging machinery. Jack even used his knowledge of the planet's magnetic fields to interfere with the dropship's sensors, giving his team precious seconds to react. One alien soldier tried to advance too quickly, underestimating Jack's ingenuity. A mining laser, improvised into a defensive beam, sliced through the ground near the intruder's feet, forcing him back. Jack saw the effect, and a small, satisfied smile crossed his face. Humans might not have had the strength or armor of these invaders, but they had brains, and brains could outmatch brute force when used correctly. Amid the chaos, Jack noticed a group of miners trapped behind a rock collapse caused by the initial landing. Without hesitation, he raced toward them, dodging falling debris and energy blasts. Reaching them, he directed them to safety through a narrow passage that the alien soldiers could not follow. His actions were quick and decisive, showing no thought for his own safety. Queen Zara's fascination grew. From her vantage point, she could see the humans rallying around Jack. He was not just fighting, he was inspiring. The other humans, once terrified, were now acting with courage and purpose. They moved like a coordinated unit, each action calculated, each decision made to maximize survival and resistance. Despite the humans' cleverness, the alien forces were not easily defeated. Their technology was advanced, their armor strong, and their weapons lethal. Jack knew they could not match them in a direct fight. He had to rely on improvisation, traps, and psychological tactics. He set up dummy structures, leaving certain crystal veins exposed as bait. When the aliens advanced toward these decoys, hidden miners triggered collapses, cutting off their paths and causing confusion. The battle raged for hours. Dust filled the air, making breathing difficult, and the constant noise of machinery, explosions, and alarms created an almost unbearable tension. Yet Jack never faltered. He moved constantly, adjusting plans, redirecting teams, and thinking several steps ahead. Every decision he made seemed to anticipate the aliens' actions, turning what should have been a one-sided attack into a challenging puzzle for the invaders. At one point, a dropship attempted to land directly near the central storage facility, where the most valuable crystals were kept. Jack quickly improvised a defense, using a combination of magnetic pulses from the mining equipment and carefully timed explosives. The dropship's landing gear malfunctioned, forcing it to lift off prematurely, scattering alien soldiers across the field. The miners cheered, giving them a much-needed boost of morale. Queen Zara felt something she had never expected: admiration. She had believed humans to be fragile, simple, and incapable of organized strategy. Yet here was Jack, one human against an entire fleet, turning chaos into opportunity. His actions were intelligent, unpredictable, and remarkably effective. She could hardly believe her eyes. Despite the victories, Jack knew they could not hold out forever. The aliens would adapt, bringing heavier reinforcements and more powerful weapons. He began thinking several steps ahead, planning how to protect the miners, preserve the crystals, and survive until reinforcements could arrive. His mind worked like a machine, calculating possibilities, risks, and outcomes in real time. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the mining fields, Jack took a brief moment to rest. He surveyed the battlefield from a small ridge, watching miners rally, aliens regroup, and machines continue to hum in the background. Every choice he had made so far had kept them alive, and yet the battle was far from over. He thought about what had brought him here: a simple desire to survive, to do his work, and to protect those around him. And now, faced with an enemy far stronger than himself, he realized something extraordinary. Humans had a way of surviving that did not rely on strength or numbers. They had ingenuity, courage, and determination, qualities that could turn the tide even against impossible odds. Queen Zara, still watching from orbit, leaned closer to her viewing panel. She could see the miners, coordinated movements, the traps, and the clever use of the terrain. But most of all, she saw Jack at the center of it all, moving with calm precision, inspiring others to follow him without question. It was a sight she could not have imagined. A human leading humans, standing against overwhelming alien forces, and holding his ground with intelligence and courage. As night fell over Thaler V, the alien ships retreated temporarily, regrouping for another assault. Jack gathered the miners, tending to the injured and reinforcing their defenses. Exhaustion weighed heavily on them, but there was a spark of hope. For the first time, they felt they could survive. They were not just victims. They were a force to be reckoned with, guided by one man who refused to surrender. Jack looked up at the sky, the stars now bright and clear above the planet. He knew the battle was far from over, but he also knew something powerful. Humans were not weak. Humans could fight, adapt, and survive in ways that no one, not even the most advanced alien species, could predict. And somewhere in the orbit above, Queen Zara watched silently, her thoughts racing. She could not deny it any longer. This human miner was extraordinary. His courage, intelligence, and determination were unlike anything she had seen in her empire. Perhaps she had underestimated humanity, and perhaps it was time to rethink what humans were truly capable of. For now, Thaler V held its breath. The battle was far from over, but one man had changed everything. Jack Rylan, an ordinary miner with an extraordinary mind, had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humans could stand tall. And the universe, it seemed, was only beginning to realize it. The night on Thaler V was quiet, but it was a deceptive calm. The alien fleet had retreated to regroup, their ships hovering just beyond the atmosphere, silent and ominous. The miners huddled in their shelters, tending to the injured and reinforcing defenses, but the tension was thick. Jack Ryland, though exhausted, refused to rest for long. He moved among them, checking barricades, repairing equipment, and quietly giving instructions. Every miner looked to Jack for guidance. His confidence and calm thinking in the face of danger had turned fear into determination. They were no longer helpless workers. They were a team, united by one man's courage and ingenuity. Even those who had doubted themselves before now worked with a new sense of purpose. Jack crouched near the main supply depot, examining the structure. "If they come back in force," he said, "we need to make sure we control where they land. The rocks, the tunnels, everything can be used against them. If we force them into the wrong spot, we can slow them down and make them waste time and energy." A young miner, barely older than a teenager, looked at him with wide eyes. "But Jack, there are too many of them. We can't stop them all." Jack shook his head. "We don't need to stop them all. We just need to survive long enough for a chance. That's all any of us can do. Think smart, not big." He moved to the mining machines, his hands flying over controls and panels. Mining lasers, drills, and transport vehicles could all be repurposed. He adjusted the laser's power settings to create high-intensity beams that could cut through alien armor, rigged explosives to trigger with precise timing, and modified small transport drones to act as distractions. Every tool at his disposal became a weapon, every machine a potential advantage. As he worked, Jack thought about the aliens' weaknesses. They were strong and heavily armed, but they relied on technology and coordination. Humans, on the other hand, were unpredictable, creative, and capable of improvisation. He had to use those qualities to his advantage. The aliens would expect direct attacks, brute force, and conventional defenses. What they would not expect was clever strategy, quick thinking, and unexpected traps. The first signs of the returning fleet came as faint vibrations through the ground and distant lights on the horizon. Jack's heart pounded, but he did not show fear. Instead, he signaled to the miners. "Positions," he shouted. "Remember the plan. Stick to your spots, watch your flanks, and trust your instincts." The aliens descended, their dropships cutting through the atmosphere with deadly precision. This time they were more cautious, having been caught off guard before. Yet Jack had prepared. Hidden explosives created false landing zones, mining lasers glowed like deadly traps, and miners waited in tunnels and behind barricades, ready to strike. The first alien dropships landed near the decoy zones. Jack's team triggered the explosives, sending clouds of dust and debris into the air. The ships wobbled, struggling to stabilize, and soldiers spilled out into dangerous terrain. Jack directed his team, using hand signals and shouted instructions to coordinate their attacks. They moved like shadows, striking quickly and retreating before the aliens could respond. Jack used tunnels to move unseen, appearing where the enemy least expected him. He sabotaged machinery, cut off supply lines, and redirected the alien soldiers into traps. His knowledge of the terrain gave the humans an advantage that the aliens had not anticipated. Queen Zara watched from orbit, her expression unreadable. She had anticipated resistance, but not like this. One human miner was turning the tide of battle, not with weapons or strength, but with intelligence, strategy, and courage. Each move Jack made was precise, each decision calculated to maximize impact while minimizing risk to his people. As the night wore on, Jack noticed that the aliens were beginning to adapt. They started splitting their forces, sending smaller squads to flank the humans. Jack anticipated this, having expected the tactic. He ordered miners to set up hidden tripwires, laser traps, and pressure-sensitive mines along the likely paths. When the alien squads advanced, they triggered these traps, slowing them and forcing them into predictable movements. One squad managed to breach the central storage area, where the most valuable crystals were kept. Jack acted immediately. He used a mining crane to lift heavy containers and block the entrances, creating a maze the aliens could not navigate easily. Then he activated the laser arrays, cutting off their retreat and trapping them inside. The aliens fought, but they were disoriented and uncoordinated, and Jack's miners were ready. Despite their fatigue, the humans were working with remarkable coordination. Jack's calm leadership and clear instructions had turned ordinary miners into a disciplined force. They moved with purpose, each action calculated, each decision contributing to the larger strategy. Even those who had been afraid moments earlier were now striking with confidence, inspired by Jack's example. The aliens, however, were not easily defeated. Their armor and weapons were superior, and they began to push back with more force. Dropships hovered overhead, ready to land more troops, and energy blasts lit up the sky as they tried to suppress the human resistance. Jack realized that to survive, he would need to be even more creative. He climbed to a high ridge overlooking the main battlefield. From there, he could see the patterns of the alien forces and the movements of his own team. He noticed a gap in their formation, an opportunity to strike where the enemy was vulnerable. Using a combination of mining lasers and remotely controlled drones, he created a diversion that drew the alien forces into a trap. Explosions rocked the ground as the aliens fell into the prepared zones. Dust and debris filled the air, obscuring vision and causing confusion. Jack led a small strike team through the chaos, targeting key enemy positions and disabling weapons. His actions were precise and efficient, allowing the humans to gain ground even against a superior force. Queen Zara's amazement grew with each passing moment. She had seen battles, wars, and revolts across multiple systems, but never had she witnessed a single human orchestrate such a complex and effective defense. Jack's ingenuity, courage, and leadership were beyond anything she had expected. She began to question the long-held belief that humans were weak, fragile, and insignificant. As the night progressed, Jack knew that victory was not guaranteed. The aliens would not give up easily, and their reinforcements were likely on the way. Yet he also knew that humans had something the aliens lacked: creativity, adaptability, and the willingness to risk everything for survival. He used these qualities to stay one step ahead, constantly adjusting his strategy and ensuring that his people remained protected. At one point, an alien officer attempted to flank the humans, moving quickly and silently through a narrow canyon. Jack anticipated this move, having predicted the enemy's behavior. He set a trap using a combination of explosives and mining machinery. When the officer triggered it, he was caught off guard, allowing the humans to capture him. This small victory boosted morale and reinforced the miners' confidence in their leader. Jack took a moment to catch his breath and observe the battlefield. His team was exhausted, but they were holding strong. The aliens, though powerful, were struggling to adapt to the unpredictable tactics of humans. Jack realized that the battle was no longer just about defending the crystals. It was about proving something much larger. Humans were not weak. Humans could survive, fight, and even outsmart forces far stronger than themselves. Queen Zara, still observing from orbit, felt a shift in her perspective. She had underestimated humans for centuries, viewing them as fragile and limited. But Jack Rylan, a single miner on a harsh planet, had shown her that human courage, intelligence, and determination could challenge even the most advanced alien forces. She could not deny it any longer. Humanity was extraordinary. As the first light of dawn broke over Thaler V, the alien forces began to withdraw temporarily, regrouping for another attempt. The miners were battered and tired, but they were alive. Jack moved among them, checking on the wounded, reinforcing defenses, and planning the next steps. He looked up at the sky, the stars fading as the sun rose. Despite the challenges and the dangers, he felt a deep sense of pride. He had led his people through a night of chaos and uncertainty, using nothing but his mind, his courage, and his determination. The humans had survived, and they had done so because they had not given up, because they had adapted, and because they had followed his lead. Queen Zara watched silently, her thoughts heavy with new understanding. She had seen the power of human ingenuity and courage firsthand. One miner had turned the tide of battle, inspiring others, outsmarting enemies, and proving that humans could achieve greatness even in the face of overwhelming odds. For Jack Rylan and the miners of Thaler V, the battle was far from over. The aliens would return, stronger and more determined. But for now, they had survived, and they had proven something extraordinary. Humans were not to be underestimated. As the miners began to rest and recover, Jack stood at the edge of the camp, looking out over the landscape. The ground was scarred, machines were damaged, and dust hung in the air like a haze of memories from the night's chaos. Yet beneath it all, the crystals still glimmered, a reminder of what they were fighting for. Jack's mind raced with plans for the future. He knew the next attack would be more dangerous, more coordinated, and more relentless. But he also knew that humans had something the aliens could never predict: courage, creativity, and the willingness to fight against impossible odds. And somewhere in the orbit above Thaler V, Queen Zara made a silent vow to herself. She would watch this human miner closely. She would learn from him, understand him, and perhaps even reconsider her empire's view of humanity. One thing was clear: Jack Rylan had changed the way she saw the universe, and she could not ignore it. As the sun rose higher, casting light over the jagged mountains and dusty plains, the miners prepared for the next phase of the battle. They were tired, but they were ready. They had survived the night, led by a man whose courage and intelligence had turned fear into determination. And Jack Rylan, standing among them, knew that the fight was far from over. But he also knew something important. Humans were extraordinary, capable of facing the impossible and prevailing, not through brute strength alone, but through ingenuity, courage, and the unyielding determination to survive. The morning on Thaler V arrived with an uneasy stillness. The air was heavy with the scent of dust and scorched rock. The jagged mountains cast long shadows across the mining fields, where humans moved cautiously among their barricades and repair stations. Jack Ryland had not slept. He had spent the night planning, analyzing the previous attacks, and considering every possible move the aliens could make next. He knew the enemy would not give up easily. They had returned to orbit, regrouping with reinforcements, likely sharing data on the humans' unexpected tactics. Jack understood that the next attack would be stronger, more coordinated, and more relentless. If the humans were to survive, he would have to be smarter, faster, and more daring than ever before. He gathered the miners together, speaking in calm, clear tones. "Listen," he said, his voice steady. "We've survived because we've been smart, because we've used what we have, and because we've worked together. But the next wave will be different. They've learned from their mistakes, and we can't just react, we have to take control. We need to strike where they least expect it, hit their command points, and disrupt them before they can organize." The miners looked at him, tired but determined. His confidence and clarity inspired them as it always had. Even those who were initially afraid now moved with purpose, carrying tools, weapons, and supplies as Jack directed them. Every person knew that survival depended on quick thinking, teamwork, and the guidance of the miner who had already turned the tide once before. Jack began preparing for a bold plan. He would lead a small team directly into the heart of the enemy's landing zone, a move that was dangerous but potentially decisive. They would sabotage dropships, disable weapons, and create chaos, giving the rest of the humans the chance to hold their ground and protect the crystal reserves. As the sun climbed higher, the alien fleet descended. This time their approach was precise, their movements coordinated and deliberate. Dropships cut through the atmosphere with deadly accuracy, releasing squads of soldiers who advanced steadily across the mining fields. Jack had anticipated this, and he had prepared. Hidden explosives, laser traps, and improvised barricades awaited them. The humans moved like shadows, striking swiftly and retreating before the aliens could respond. Jack's team used the terrain to their advantage, luring the enemy into narrow canyons and confined spaces where their superior numbers and armor were less effective. Despite the danger, Jack never hesitated. He led from the front, demonstrating courage and ingenuity that inspired the miners around him. He used mining machinery in unexpected ways, turning drills and transport vehicles into obstacles and weapons. He created diversions with drones and remote-triggered explosives, forcing the aliens to split their forces and leaving them vulnerable to targeted attacks. The aliens quickly realized that their previous tactics were ineffective. They began adapting, deploying specialized squads to counter Jack's unpredictable strategies. But Jack anticipated these moves as well. He directed his team to set up decoy positions, creating confusion and forcing the enemy to waste resources on false targets. Every action was calculated, every decision precise, demonstrating human ingenuity in full force. At one point, a squad of elite alien soldiers attempted to flank Jack's team from the east. Jack had foreseen the maneuver. He signaled to a small group of miners hiding nearby, who triggered a carefully prepared trap. A section of rock collapsed, cutting off the flank and trapping the alien squad in a narrow passage. Jack's team moved quickly, disabling their weapons and securing the area. The sight of a single human and a handful of miners controlling the battlefield stunned even Queen Zara, who watched silently from orbit. She had expected humans to be clever, perhaps lucky, but not this precise, not this resourceful. Jack was not only surviving, he was leading, directing, and turning chaos into opportunity. Each move he made seemed to anticipate the aliens' thoughts, as if he could see their strategy before they even acted. Jack's team advanced toward the enemy dropships at the heart of the landing zone. The ships were heavily armed, their engines humming with lethal energy. Jack studied them carefully. He knew that direct confrontation would be suicide. Instead, he used a combination of explosives and magnetic interference to disable their engines temporarily. When the dropships lifted off unexpectedly, soldiers spilled into dangerous terrain, giving Jack's team the upper hand. As the battle raged, Jack noticed one particular dropship acting as a command hub. It directed the movements of other units, coordinating attacks and supplying reinforcements. He realized that if he could disable this ship, it could disrupt the entire enemy operation. Without hesitation, he devised a bold plan. He gathered a small strike team of the most skilled and trusted miners. They would infiltrate the command dropship directly, a move that was highly risky but potentially game-changing. Jack equipped them with tools, explosives, and modified mining lasers, explaining the plan in concise, clear instructions. Every miner understood their role, every action calculated to maximize impact and minimize risk. The infiltration was tense. The team moved silently, using shadows and terrain to avoid detection. Jack led the way, checking paths, disabling sensors, and guiding his team with precision. They approached the command dropship under the cover of dust and debris, their hearts pounding but their minds focused. Jack identified the weak points in the ship's hull, places where mining equipment could be used to breach the structure. He signaled to the team, and they moved quickly, attaching explosives and securing entry points. The dropship shuddered as they worked, but Jack remained calm, his mind racing with calculations and contingencies. Once inside, they faced a new challenge: alien control systems far more advanced than anything humans had seen. Jack's engineering knowledge became their greatest asset. He analyzed the mechanisms, tracing power lines, disabling communications, and rerouting energy to create temporary system failures. The ship's controls faltered, alarms blaring as Jack's team worked with precision and speed. The aliens inside the ship tried to retaliate, but Jack anticipated their movements. He directed his team to use mining lasers and improvised tools as weapons, striking quickly and retreating before the aliens could respond effectively. Every action was deliberate, every decision calculated, demonstrating the extraordinary adaptability of humans under pressure. Outside, the rest of the miners coordinated attacks to prevent reinforcements from reaching the command ship. Jack's bold infiltration created chaos among the enemy forces. Dropships faltered, soldiers became disoriented, and the previously coordinated assault turned into confusion. The humans gained ground, their morale boosted by the daring actions of their leader. Queen Zara watched, astonished. She had expected cleverness from humans, but not this level of precision, strategy, and courage. One human, one miner, had infiltrated the heart of an enemy operation and disrupted an entire assault. His actions were not brute force. They were intelligence, courage, and ingenuity in action. As the command dropship systems failed, Jack's team prepared to exit. They had caused maximum disruption with minimal casualties, turning a potentially disastrous situation into a decisive advantage. Jack signaled to the miners outside, and they moved in coordinated formations to secure the area. Explosions and flashes of light marked the battlefield, but the humans pressed forward with confidence. Despite the victory, Jack knew the battle was far from over. The aliens would regroup, bringing even more powerful reinforcements. Yet he also knew something extraordinary. Humans could survive, adapt, and overcome even the most advanced and ruthless forces when guided by courage and intelligence. He gathered his team, checking for injuries and ensuring everyone was accounted for. "We did well," he said, his voice calm but filled with determination. "But this is just the beginning. We need to hold our ground, protect the crystals, and be ready for whatever comes next. Stay alert, stay focused, and trust each other." The miners nodded, inspired by Jack's leadership. Fatigue weighed heavily on them, but they were filled with renewed determination. They had faced an overwhelming enemy and survived, not because of strength, but because of intelligence, courage, and teamwork. Queen Zara continued to observe in awe. Jack Rylan was not merely surviving, he was transforming humans into a force that demanded respect. She realized that the galaxy had underestimated humanity for centuries. One miner, facing impossible odds, had shown her what humans were truly capable of. His courage, strategy, and determination were extraordinary, and she knew that this was only the beginning. As night fell again on Thaler V, the miners prepared for the next phase of the battle. They reinforced barricades, repaired equipment, and tended to the wounded. Jack moved among them, offering guidance, encouragement, and reassurance. He knew that the challenges ahead would be even greater, but he also knew that humans had the power to face the impossible and prevail. Standing at the edge of the mining fields, Jack looked up at the stars. The battle for Thaler V was far from over, but he felt a deep sense of resolve. Humans were not weak, fragile, or insignificant. They were courageous, intelligent, and capable of extraordinary feats when united and led wisely. And somewhere in orbit, Queen Zara made a silent vow. She would continue to watch this human miner, to understand him, and to learn from him. Jack Rylan had changed the way she saw humanity, and she could not ignore it. One miner had proven that courage, intelligence, and determination could challenge even the most advanced forces in the galaxy. The night was quiet, but the calm was temporary. The aliens would return, stronger and more determined than ever. Jack knew it, and he welcomed the challenge. For humans, survival was never easy, but it was possible. And Jack Rylan, a miner with nothing but courage and intelligence, was ready to face whatever came next. The sun rose slowly over Thaler V, casting a golden glow over the jagged mountains and dusty plains. The air was heavy with tension, yet it carried a strange sense of anticipation. Jack Rylan stood at the edge of the mining fields, his eyes scanning the horizon. He knew the alien fleet would return, stronger and more organized than ever. This would be the decisive moment, the battle that could determine the survival of every miner on the planet. The humans moved quietly but purposefully among their defenses. Barricades had been reinforced, traps set, and machinery modified into defensive tools. The miners, inspired by Jack's leadership, were no longer fearful workers. They were a force to be reckoned with. Their confidence had grown through previous encounters, and they trusted their leader completely. Every action, every step was coordinated, a testament to human determination and ingenuity. Jack gathered the team closest to him, those he trusted most, and spoke quietly but firmly. "Today, we face the final wave. We know what they can do, and we know what we can do. Stick to the plan, trust each other, and be smart. Use your brains more than your strength. That's how we survive, and that's how we win." The miners nodded, their faces set with determination. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew something stronger than odds. Humans never gave up when there was a chance to fight, never surrendered when they could think their way to victory. Jack's courage had inspired them, and his strategies had proven that brains could triumph over brute force. From orbit, Queen Zara watched silently, her expression unreadable. She had never seen such bravery, such skill, and such intelligence displayed by a single human and those around him. Jack Rylan had already altered her perception of humanity, but she now realized that his actions could change the galaxy's understanding of human potential forever. The alien fleet appeared on the horizon, vast and imposing. Dropships descended in perfect formation, and armored soldiers spilled onto the ground, moving methodically toward the human defenses. Their energy weapons glowed ominously, cutting through the morning light. Yet the humans did not falter. They moved quickly, following Jack's precise instructions, activating traps, setting off explosives, and taking positions to maximize their advantage. Jack led a small team directly into the most dangerous zone, the area where the enemy had concentrated their forces and established a temporary command post. His goal was clear: disrupt their coordination, disable key ships, and turn confusion into opportunity. He moved with precision, directing his team through tunnels, behind rock formations, and along hidden paths that only someone familiar with the terrain could know. The alien soldiers were strong, but Jack anticipated every move. He used the environment to his advantage, leading the enemy into narrow passages where their strength and numbers were less effective. He improvised weapons from mining machinery, creating unpredictable attacks that kept the aliens off balance. Every step, every decision, demonstrated human intelligence and courage. Explosions rocked the battlefield as traps were triggered, sending debris flying and forcing the enemy to retreat from carefully prepared zones. Jack and his team moved quickly, disabling weapons and sabotaging dropships, cutting off reinforcements and creating chaos. Each action was precise, calculated, and effective. The miners outside the central zone played their part perfectly. They controlled the flanks, protected the crystal reserves, and kept the enemy occupied while Jack struck at the heart of the invasion. Communication was swift and efficient, using signals, radios, and prearranged markers. Every miner knew their role, and every action contributed to the larger strategy. Amid the chaos, Jack noticed a group of elite alien warriors attempting to break through the perimeter to reinforce the command zone. He did not panic. Instead, he quickly adapted, using a combination of explosives, improvised barricades, and tactical maneuvers to intercept them. The elite soldiers were strong, but they were predictable in their training and tactics, and Jack exploited that predictability to maximum effect. As the battle intensified, Jack realized that the decisive moment would come when the alien command ship was disabled. He focused on that goal, analyzing its structure, identifying vulnerabilities, and planning a precise strike. Using a combination of mining lasers, explosives, and magnetic interference, he created a chain reaction that forced the ship to malfunction. Its systems failed, its engines faltered, and chaos spread through the alien ranks. Queen Zara, watching from orbit, could hardly believe her eyes. One human, one miner, had not only survived against overwhelming odds but had turned the battle in favor of his people. His courage, intelligence, and determination had disrupted the enemy fleet, inspired humans to fight with unmatched bravery, and proven that humans were far more capable than any alien had imagined. With the command ship disabled, the alien forces began to lose coordination. Soldiers were confused, reinforcements delayed, and morale dropped. Jack seized the opportunity, leading a final coordinated strike that forced the aliens to retreat. Dropships lifted off under fire, soldiers fell back, and the humans pressed forward, holding their ground with unwavering resolve. The miners cheered, exhausted but victorious. They had survived a battle that should have been impossible. They had protected the crystal reserves, defended their homes, and proven that even against overwhelming power, humans could prevail. Jack, standing at the center of the battlefield, allowed himself a moment to breathe, his eyes scanning the horizon for any remaining threats. Queen Zara's perspective had shifted completely. She realized that humanity was not to be underestimated. One miner had shown her the power of intelligence, courage, and determination. Humans could think, adapt, and fight in ways that no alien technology could fully anticipate. They were resilient, resourceful, and capable of extraordinary feats. She made her decision. Descending to the surface in her personal craft, she landed near the mining fields. Her presence was imposing, but she radiated respect rather than threat. Jack and the miners watched her approach, wary but curious. "Jack Rylan," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "I have watched your actions closely. You have done what I did not expect any human to do. You have led your people, defended this planet, and outsmarted forces far superior to you. You have my respect." Jack, tired but steady, nodded. "Thank you, Your Majesty. We did what we had to do. We survived because we worked together and used our brains. That's all humans can do: adapt, fight, and never give up." Zara studied him, her expression thoughtful. "Humans, I had underestimated you, but now I see that your courage and intelligence are extraordinary. Perhaps I have judged your species too quickly. Perhaps the galaxy has underestimated humanity entirely." Jack's team watched in awe as the Queen spoke. They had followed his lead through impossible odds, and now an alien ruler was acknowledging their strength. It was a moment they would never forget, a validation of their courage, skill, and determination. The miners began repairing damage, tending to the wounded, and restoring their equipment. Jack moved among them, offering guidance, encouragement, and reassurance. He knew that the battle might not be the last challenge they faced, but he also knew that humans had proven something vital. They were capable of greatness, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable obstacles. As evening fell over Thaler V, Jack and Queen Zara walked among the mining fields together. She asked questions, curious about human ingenuity, resilience, and the ways in which they had adapted to survive in a harsh, alien environment. Jack answered simply, honestly, and thoughtfully, explaining how humans relied on creativity, teamwork, and determination rather than brute strength or advanced technology alone. Zara listened carefully, realizing that these qualities were what made humanity so remarkable. In one ordinary human, she had witnessed the extraordinary potential of an entire species. She began to understand that humans were not weak, fragile, or insignificant. They were capable of brilliance, courage, and ingenuity that could rival the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Night fell completely, and the stars shone brilliantly above Thaler V. The battlefield was quiet, the enemy fleet retreating to unknown corners of space. The miners gathered around Jack, tired but proud, sharing stories, laughter, and relief. They had survived against impossible odds, protected their homes, and demonstrated that humans were not to be underestimated. Jack looked up at the stars, reflecting on everything that had happened. He thought about the miners who had followed him, the alien forces they had faced, and the unexpected respect of Queen Zara. He realized that humans were extraordinary, not because of strength or weapons, but because of their courage, intelligence, and refusal to give up. Queen Zara watched him quietly. She had come to witness humanity in action, and she had been amazed. She now carried a new understanding, a deep respect, and a determination to change the way her empire interacted with humans. One miner had shown her the potential of a species she had dismissed for centuries, and she could not ignore it. As the first light of dawn approached, the miners settled in their shelters, resting but ready for whatever might come next. Jack remained at the edge of the camp, staring at the horizon. He knew challenges would continue, that the universe was vast, unpredictable, and often dangerous. But he also knew that humans had something extraordinary: the ability to think, adapt, and fight with courage and intelligence against any odds. And in that quiet, star-filled morning, the humans of Thaler V understood something profound. They were not just survivors, they were a force capable of greatness. They had faced the impossible and emerged victorious, led by a miner whose courage, ingenuity, and determination had changed everything. Queen Zara, standing nearby, finally spoke. "Humans are remarkable," she said softly. "I have witnessed courage, intelligence, and ingenuity that surpass my expectations. Your species has a strength I can no longer ignore." Jack Rylan, you have not only protected your people but also shown the galaxy that humans are extraordinary. Jack nodded, humbled but steady. We're just humans, he said simply. We do what we have to do, we adapt, we fight, we survive. That's what makes us who we are. The Queen smiled faintly, a rare gesture from one so regal and distant. Perhaps, in time, the galaxy will learn what I have learned today. Perhaps humans will no longer be underestimated. And so, Thaler V entered a new era. The humans had survived an impossible attack, protected their resources, and proven their strength to an entire alien empire. Jack Rylan, an ordinary miner with extraordinary courage and intelligence, had led them through chaos and danger, demonstrating the true power of humanity. As the sun rose higher, illuminating the planet's jagged peaks and glimmering crystals, a sense of hope and determination filled the air. The humans had won, not through brute strength, not through advanced technology, but through ingenuity, courage, and unyielding determination. They were a species capable of facing the impossible and prevailing. And somewhere in orbit, Queen Zara watched silently, knowing that one human miner had changed everything. Jack Rylan had proven that humanity was extraordinary, and the galaxy would never forget it.